a disturbing accusation against the very people who are actually charged with protecting our top leaders. The Secret Service is accused of deleting text messages from January 5th and 6th after they were asked to turn them over to government watchdogs. The DHS Inspector General sent a letter to both the House and the Senate Homeland Security Committees this week, sounding the alarm. He says that after his office requested full electronic records for an evaluation of the Capitol attack, the Secret Service permanently erased a significant number of text messages from that exact time period. NBC obtained this copy of the letter, but a spokesperson for the Secret Service denies that any messages were maliciously erased. In a statement he wrote in January 2021, before any inspection was opened by the OIG on this subject, the Secret Service began to reset its mobile phones to factory settings as part of a pre-planned 3-month system migration. In that process, data resident on some phones was lost. He went on to say that, in fact, the Secret Service has been fully cooperative with DHS investigators on all matters. So this story very much still developing. Joining me now to start us off, NBC News legal analyst Andrew Weissmann, former FBI general counsel and perhaps best known for his most recent role in the Mueller probe into Russian election interference. And Andrew, as a former prosecutor, when you hear that coincidentally text messages from January 5th and 6th, 2021 have been deleted somehow, does that just perk your ears up?
Absolutely, because you have to also consider that in the light that we've also heard that the White House has conveniently had a gap in its phone logs. And it just so happens that the gap is for either January 5th or January 6th. And we all know that those dates have meanings, particularly in light of what Cassidy Hutchinson testified to about what she heard had been happening with the Secret Service taking Donald Trump from the ellipse. But I do think it's worth everyone taking a deep breath, because this is something where it should be possible for the Department of Justice, if it's interested, and certainly Congress, to get to the bottom of it. The Secret Service is saying that this was routine, and this wasn't done in response to anything. In other words, this was a routine upgrade. If that's true, there should be a backup for everything, and they should be able to produce everything. So I think this is one where we do have to take a little bit of a pause and see what the facts actually play out. If it turns out that they cannot produce all of the texts and emails for those two dates, then I think you're right. My antenna go way up as to how that happened and who's responsible.
One of the things we've been talking about all throughout the January 6th hearings is, what is the DOJ doing? We're watching the committee in Congress go methodically through their presentation, but we don't really have any insights into what the Department of Justice is doing other than isolated reporting about certain raids and subpoenas. So you have a career as a prosecutor going after these big organizations, Enron, obviously in the Mueller probe, big conspiracy cases, going from the bottom up. And you recently wrote that it is actually the wrong approach for investigating the January 6th insurrection. And that approach sees the attack on the Capitol as a single event, an isolated riot separate from other efforts by Donald Trump and his allies to overturn the election. So we started off talking about the breaking news with the Secret Service, but I think each individual report goes to the fact that the January 6th riot, as we understood it, looks very different in light of each new piece of information, and maybe it should be investigated that way.
Absolutely. Excuse me. That was the point of what my op-ed was about, which is that these things can't be investigated in isolation. And it's not like the department's doing nothing. And obviously it's focusing on the hundreds of people who attacked the Capitol on that day. But to look at that in isolation of all of the other things that we've learned from the January 6th committee hearings, which is what was going on with the president interfering with the Department of Justice, interfering in Georgia with fake electors. I mean, there's so many different aspects. Those aren't isolated from one another. If you look at it from the perspective of what Donald Trump was trying to accomplish, those are all part of a plan, and they thus need to be investigated that way. And that's how things are investigated usually if you are looking at Enron or the mob or what we were doing in the special counsel. So I do think that this is an area where we do expect and should expect as citizens to see more action by the Department of Justice looking at this holistically rather than as isolated events.
The other thing you mentioned in your piece is the fact that in your previous investigations, it wasn't as if you were not going to go after the top people in these organizations just because that might have been, quote unquote, like more difficult or more controversial. And you did work bottom up, but you made sure to get to the top. One of the frequent lines in this particular moment people are putting forward is, well, the DOJ would want to avoid looking like they're being persuaded by the politics of this particular moment. Speak to why it's incredibly important for them to very seriously go all the way up the line to Donald Trump, given what the committee has laid out so far.
So I couldn't agree more that it is important. The normal criticism of investigating a former president is that we will look like a banana republic and we will be politicizing the Department of Justice. I actually think when you've got factual predication for a serious criminal case, we look political and like a banana republic for not investigating that conduct. If you have a former president doing the unthinkable, which is trying to undermine a democratic election for the president and condoning not just violence, but violence that would be up to and including people calling for hanging the vice president of the United States, the idea that that would not engender an investigation, and a serious one, undertaken with all alacrity and complete thoroughness because you don't want to look political, I think turns us into a banana republic. I think that that's one where it does take great fortitude. There is no question that this is a singular moment for the Attorney General of the United States. But sometimes the times call on you to do your job and to do what can be very difficult. And when you know that you're doing the right thing, that is usually the way to respond to people who will criticize you for being, quote unquote, political.
It's a really important point to end on. Andrew Weissmann, thank you so much for being here and starting us off. Please stay safe. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.